I had a mentor once who said that, like, he's like, what you try to do is impossible. And he's like, you're just too stupid to realize it's impossible, then you end up, like, figuring it out.
That's why, just jumping back on the previous point, pushback and negative feedback and rejections are so good because now you have one more way of knowing now to do it. Because if people don't give you that feedback, you're not going to succeed.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Follow your dreams, not your addictions.
Hey, what's up, my good people? Welcome to FiredUp KC. We are back again, and today we have two awesome guests in the house. Like I told you guys, we had one, but we have two awesome guests in the house. So we got more for you guys today. So this is FiredUp KC. Welcome to the show. We talk about entrepreneurship, leadership, we talk about purpose, faith, belief. Just being able to understand what makes people successful and be able to inspire people to pursue their purpose. Now, today, I have with me Mr. Clarence, who is the CEO and co-founder of Bottle, which is a learning application that helps students learn while they're gaming. And I have also Mr. Seth here today, who joined us here. I'm excited for it because I read your bio and it is crazy. Like, it's insane. So we're going to be diving into that more. But welcome to the show, Mr. Clarence. How you doing today?
Thank you. Doing pretty well.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
How's your day been so far?
It's been busy as always, but I'm having a blast.
Making that money. It's always busy making money, huh?
Yeah.
What about you, Mr.?
But been going good. Real good. Thanks for being me. It's nice to be here. Better than being on the farm, that's for sure.
I'm excited for today. So, Mr. Clarence, tell people a little bit about yourself. Let them know who is Mr. Clarence 10, because we see you on the media. I see you like all the time on like Startland News, and I'm like, what is going on? You got all the gigs going on. So let people know who is Mr. Clarence 10. Let them know.
Yeah, sure. So I actually graduated from UMKC as well. So
no way! Word! No way!
So I started off doing game design. I pursued a finance degree here at UMKC, and I was like, you know what? I don't really like finance very much.
Yeah.
So I started a game development company in South America.
Okay.
And then we started selling, developing and selling a lot of educational games. So a lot of universities, even the government of Colombia contracted us to build games for them, and that's kind of like how I got into this whole educational games industry.
Yeah.
And so today, me and my wife, we are the founders of Bottle Learning, which is an educational game that makes it fun for students to practice math, reading, and makes it easy for teachers to assess and find out how their kids are doing too.
Wow. No, that's awesome. So, Mr. Seth, let them know who's here today. Now I read your bio. I read your bio, and it's insane. How you're able to overcome the challenges that you had growing up and being able to become successful and being able to learn your difficulties and being able to overcome them and becoming successful. Now, tell the people who is Mr. Seth. Let them know.
Mr. Seth is just a little stupid, I think. I think that to be a great or bad entrepreneur, you have to be just crazy about like being willing to. I would say stupid, but I think the effective way to say it is ignorant. Like if you're just ignorant of not knowing what you're capable of, then you just jump in there and think you can do it.
Yeah.
And then I had a mentor once who said that, like, he's like, what you try to do is impossible. And he's like, you're just too stupid to realize it's impossible, then you end up like figuring it out.
Yeah.
Wow. So I think that's how most entrepreneurs do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you just kind of figure out what's going on in there. And I think early on you try to figure out how to succeed in business, but then I think as you grow, you start to figure out like the patterns.
Yes.
Met Clarence a couple of years ago, and like this guy has the control of patterns and learning, and so we kind of have the same sort of thing going on. But I think as you kind of identify patterns about how people think, you start to figure out the ways to kind of make success by knowing what to say, how to say it.
Exactly.
And then as you kind of develop that, for myself, I kind of learned the same thing. I like how to modify how I think and my challenges to make it be benefits versus these ailments or whatever.
Wow. Now, Mr. Clarence, just give us a brief recap. So where are you from, and how did you get to Kansas City, and how did all this, idea start up? And you know what, I'm going to start up in Kansas City. How did you get to Kansas City? Let people know.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in San Francisco.
Okay.
I left really early, and I lived and grew up in for the next 15 years. Living in Singapore and China.
Okay.
And then I had an aunt who lived here in Kansas City, and my parents were like, hey, let's send you to the middle of the U.S. where you're far away from your culture so that you can actually focus on studying, and that's kind of like where I arrived in Kansas City.
Okay.
I thought I was going to leave within the first 3 years. Everybody always does.
Yeah, true.
And then fell in love with the city. And as soon as I came back from South America, doing the first business, I was like, you know what? I'm going to start it here in Kansas City.
Yeah.
It's a great city. And yeah, so that's kind of like the background of how I got started.
Okay. But Mr. Seth, let us know, what is your passion about entrepreneurs? Because you seem to very passionate about entrepreneurs, being able to motivate people to, grow their business. What is it? What led you to do that?
I would say like the fake answer would be because when you want to build up companies, it kind of gives you the thought that you can do anything. Mm-hmm. But the real answer is that coming out of college, I went to interview at a local store, and the guy that was the hiring manager was the guy that bombed out my freshman year, and I was like, okay, well, if I succeed, if I fail, this is the worst that can happen.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So then I was like, I'll try entrepreneurship and see what the worst that can happen.
Yeah, dang.
Plus the guys that I'd seen that, a lot of guys that I had met that were doing really good at entrepreneurship actually had a lot of struggles early on. Okay. And so it kind of been one of those things where you start to break down. You're like, okay, I have these challenges in the corporate world. It's kind of like they look down on those kind of challenges. Yes. You have those things we want this specific pedigree of type of people. Yes. But when you look at entrepreneurs, what you notice is that most of the very successful ones have a lot of problems. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So if you look at a lot of the billionaires out there, they didn't have the traditional things. They either had attention deficit or had some sort of ailment that made them a little off. Basically, if you look out there, there's a lot of your serial entrepreneurs and things have certain challenges they overcome. Yeah. And because of that, it allowed them to constantly push forward. And so whereas most people would be like, oh, I'm out on my own, this is not going well, serial entrepreneurs or even entrepreneurs kind of you know what, I'm used to being out on my own. It's not actually that big of a difference. Kind of like you're used to be on your own by different cultures, different things. So being alone isn't actually the end of the world. It's kind of the place you kind of like to be in a way. And so pushing against everybody has that sort of interest point.
Now, tell me, Mr. Clarence, what is it? How did you start inventing apps? How did you get into that sector? How did you go from finance to even start making your own apps and applications? How did that start? Man.
I don't know. I think I was just naive enough to think that we could. The story is the very first company we started, it was actually a bunch of us guys who were part of the same, we called it a guild in an online game. So we've never met, and we're like, hey, you know what? We spent a lot of time and money playing this game. I bet we can build a better game. So we started coming up with ideas while we were on chatting and on TeamSpeak, and then that was the goal. We were going to build an awesome online role-playing game. Okay. And we're like, you know what? That's kind of expensive. Let's start building games for other people first, and then that's kind of how we first got started. So it wasn't smooth sailing. In fact, when we got started, I actually had a full-time job at a company called State Street. Okay. It was a pretty good entry-level job, but then what happened was a lot of the work that I was doing was, even though it was finance related, it was quite manual. Okay. And I felt really defeated one day because I built an Excel macro that pretty much did my job for me. Wow. So I could just press it and then it would copy and paste everything that I did in one day. And it wasn't even complicated to build. It was an Excel macro. Wow. And then I tried to ask, my superior, hey, can I use this program? And she's like, no, we need the human touch to make sure everything is good. But the funny part was every time I ran the macro, it was more accurate than what I did. So I'm like, you know what? I felt really defeated that a simple program could have just replaced my job here. So I was like, you know what? Let's try something more fun and creative. And then it was games for me. Yeah. I thought I was going to build, I thought I was going to build the next Angry Birds and that. Yeah. I was silly, but it was I stumbled on education by accident, and then fell in love with, because not only is it super fun for kids, but then you can see the impact it's making in the classroom. And if I can do that every day of my life, I'll be set.
Now, I mean, hearing your story, it seems like you didn't. Did you go to school for like coding, or did you just like? Is it something that is in it, like being able to code stuff? Did you go to school for it, or did it just happen along the way you learning it?
No, I did not. So a lot of it was YouTube, Udemy.
Wow.
I do a lot of design, and back then we had a booth at this conference called Game Developers Convention or Conference, GDC. It was huge. They had a vault. They call it the vault of all the game design documents, all these videos, and then that was all I had. I didn't have money to go to school, and I don't think there's any. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on this. Any game design programs here in Kansas City, anyways. So I just kept watching the vault videos, watching PowerPoints, watching people speak in the slides, and then I was like, you know what? I think I'm an expert. Let me try it out. And then I built a bunch of games, and they were horrible. And the kids hated them. But then because I had the opportunity to keep trying and working with kids in Colombia, eventually I kind of got the hang of, hey, this kind of works. This kind of does not work.
Yeah. Wow. Now I feel like
brilliant. Can I say something?
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I mean, like, just from the outside in, like, if an entrepreneur is willing to, like, try things like what he did, you mean, so early on he said he didn't get it, but we also probably, correct me if I'm wrong, but you got to learn, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
What was working? Like, so how did you figure out what was working based off what you kind of tested out there? Can I ask?
Yeah. So I built a game, and then, for example, and I still do it today sometimes. So, for example, with Bottle, I created a in-game tutorial that taught people how the game works, and I needed a way to kind of force people to get the wrong answer. So I designed this thing where if they tried to click the right answer would just move away and move away. And sure enough, I thought it was smart. I thought it was clever. I thought that if I had the in-game character say, "Hey, gotcha," I'm just messing with you, that kids would find the humor in it.
Yeah.
Turns out I've received a bunch of emails recently from teachers saying, "Hey, the kids are frustrated. They're complaining how the game is tricking them, is messing with them." So there's things like that you kind of have to just try it out. You think it's creative at first, but you just get proven wrong, and you're like, okay, I guess I have to change.
Yeah.
But the more you try, the more you know.
So I mean, I gotta ask, like, did you ever see yourself doing this as a kid, or what did you want to do as a kid? Let me ask that. Did you?
Yeah. So my dad was a banker, so I always thought, I'm gonna be a banker or a stockbroker. I'll get a Ferrari when I'm 28 years old, and then I'll just be set. That was the goal. So as soon as I graduated, I was very disappointed, as you can imagine.
Yeah. Well, that Ferrari's not coming soon.
Yeah, not at all.
You're not gonna get it, But I mean, it's like what we see on TV. We think it's going to be that fast paced, but again, it doesn't happen like that. Another thing I want to ask is, like, what are the pushbacks you've had, like, in your career? Because I know that, like, with entrepreneurs or leaders, you always have, like, pushbacks that kind of push you to the edge. You'd be like, man, I think I should quit. But at the end of the day, through those pushbacks, you actually get things that make you succeed. Have you ever had, like, pushbacks that made you, like, step back and be like, you know what? I realized my mistake and I think I can go forward.
Daily.
Yeah.
I mean, like, man, if I get to count them, it'd be in the tens of thousands. I mean, I think the hardest part is, I think from the outside in, when you look at entrepreneurs, a lot of times you see pushback and they're like, they know what to do next, they want to do next. I can't tell you how many meetings I've had where I'm like, that went awful. You mean, and then you're like, okay, what could have I done different? Like, I think that went pretty good and ended up absolutely massively bad. Yeah. And so you just usually don't know for a long time of what it is. I think you can ask advisors, but I think the thing is, if to be successful, you have to go through a lot of those bad moments.
Exactly. And
a lot of those bad moments are going to be the moments where you don't even know why they happen. But it isn't until you, like Terrence said, like, you try those different things out. If he stopped the first time the first kid or first teacher came back and said they're getting frustrated, I mean, he wouldn't learn anything because that's just one pushback point. So I would say, when you get pushback, keep it in context and what was the purpose you're trying to do. All you know is you just got pushback. So people take this massive, I got pushback and everything is bad. Whereas if you can break your pieces apart and start making small tests, then what it does is it starts to say, okay, my starting pitch was bad, or I didn't ask them how their day was going to find out that they had a really bad thing happen, and let's discuss that out so that I can then go into my pitch.
Yeah.
So I think that if you can find those small pieces and break out what the purpose is, it really helps to refine exactly what happened bad. And so you can break those things down. Kind of like Terrence did on that little moving the answer around.
Yeah.
By doing that, he can then find small things versus saying, oh, yeah, the whole game's crap.
Yeah.
I mean, let's do it was just one small piece, right?
Let me ask you, like, do you, because I see you, like, you went in, like, the OHUB grant, like, you went, like the 500K, you had, like, a group of people, and then you were, like, you're always on Startland News. Are there times you get emotional remembering times that you actually failed? Like, you know, you get emotional about things that happened because you remember at one point this didn't look like it was going to happen.
Oh man, that's a crazy question because you know the big wins like OHUB, you know, getting investment from AT&T,
Yes.
winning Launch KC. Those are
Yes.
3. But what people don't see is I applied to like 94 other ones, and all of them I just get flat out rejected.
Wow.
You get all these. You know, they try to be nice, which I appreciate. They
Yeah.
give you like hey, this is why we didn't accept you. And you
Yeah.
read all these things and you're like, you know what? Sometimes you just have to not be offended and just take it, oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting too because I forgot who it was I met during Launch KC when they announced our name and we won.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was an amazing prize, but then I did not necessarily like jump for joy, not because it was not amazing, it was because you know, I just felt like, all right, that was like 30 failures already just for this one. It's like, okay, let me just get back on track, recollect myself.
Wow.
Again, Launch KC, EDC, they're amazing. Yeah, I didn't even expect to win. I didn't even expect to have the opportunity to pitch. And in fact, I actually applied. That was my 3rd time applying to Launch KC. So I had applied twice before.
Wow.
And got rejected. So for me, it was more so, it was one of those, you know what, I'll just try again this year. And then I just applied and never thought about it. And then that was kind of like what literally saved our company because our cash flow was so tight at that point.
Wow. Now, like,
It was planned, right?
It was not planned at all.
I mean, I'm happy you're sharing this because, like, on my perspective, from my side of looking at it, I'm like, man, you are so lucky, like all that, you know, success. But now you talking about your failures kind of make me feel like, you know, the thing that people say that you have worked all your life to be an overnight success, right? Where you've worked all this while you've had all these failures, but because you kept going, you know, you succeeded at last, right? Now, for you, what was the biggest drawback for you that you had in your, you know, being able to build this app? What was the biggest thing that happened to you? Be like, you know what? I think I'm going to pack my bags and leave. This is not going to ever work. What was one of the one or two biggest things that happened for you?
All right, so by far the biggest thing, and it kind of ties to Seth because that's kind of like where I met him.
Okay.
So before Bottle, I had another company called CodaQuest. Very similar concept. The idea was we're going to build the biggest, baddest educational game. It's going to be so fun. Kids are going to love it. We're going to incorporate some AI into the whole process. And we didn't get pushback. You know, we didn't get feedback. We thought, hey, the concept is so good. So we raised a bunch of money, built it, and then we had 80 school districts sign up when we went to a conference. So we were like, all right, this is going to be successful. Like 80 school districts before we even had a product.
Wow.
And then we finished the product, launched it, and it failed. 6 months, only 2 schools, not districts, schools were able to get past the install page because none of the schools actually had the technology to run our game. We needed a graphics card and that kind of thing. It was crazy. And that's actually where I met Seth because there was was it a pitch competition? Yeah, he was one of the judges, and that's kind of like where I met him. Okay. That was when we were trying to pivot to the homeschool market because we knew schools didn't have the technology. But because it was like a wizard game, homeschool parents didn't want it either, as you can imagine. Yeah, but so that was a huge lesson learned, which is why, just jumping back on the previous point, pushback and negative feedback and rejections are so good because now you know you have one more way of knowing now to do it. Because if people don't give you that feedback, you're not going to succeed. Most likely you're not.
So, like, I guess you guys have a different perspective about, because we talked about this on my last show with the dean. We talked about being able to change the narrative of failure. People see failure as a negative thing, but sometimes it can actually be something that leads you to the next step of your, success. Because sometimes people feel bad, man, I failed, I don't want to try again. But sometimes failure is a place for you to actually sit down and think, what did I do wrong? How can I go forward, right? So now you've been going through what you've been through and being where you are today, becoming one of the successful entrepreneurs in Kansas City. What is your perspective about failure?
First of all, I won't say I'm successful yet.
I would say that. I mean, if you get the amount of money you've gone so far, I would say that. I would definitely say that.
but
he's got a cape on that says success.
To answer your question, I feel like failure is so necessary. It's the stepping stone to success. And if there's anything that I would tell a listener is really try to get this like a minimum viable product and really understand the customer before you build anything. With so many tools today, you can literally build a solution without actually committing to building the product. So what we did with Bottle that was different from the previous company was we literally did Photoshop and PowerPoint images of what the product would look like. And then we just walked it to the teacher and said, hey, if we had this, would it be good? And no. We just kept taking notes until we're like, hey, this would be good. And then we started building after we had like legitimate feedback. And if you look at our platform right now for teachers, we only have 2 reports: student progress and where kids are struggling. And the most popular report, the trouble spots, where students are struggling, I didn't even design it. It was a 58-year-old teacher that says, hey, Clarence, you brought so many of these like charts to me. They look nice, I'm sure. I don't care about it. Just tell me who is struggling in my class and why. If you can do that, I'll be good. And then, so we only have 2 reports. We have like 10 times less than our competitors. But we found out after iteration that, they only need very few things. And if we didn't fail, we didn't just keep asking, and we didn't just keep talking to the end user before building our product, we would have spent a lot of money, and it would have been wasted.
But I want to ask this: what is one thing that motivates you to keep going? What is one thing that motivates you to to keep striving hard, regardless of how bad it's getting or regardless of how hard it is? What is one thing that keeps you going, regardless of how things are going?
So for me, I just really believe in the vision and mission of what we are doing. So even both me and my wife were just going like full ham on this. In fact, before we got the AT&T investment, we pretty much ran out of cash. So I was applying for a high-paying job in San Francisco, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna like mooch off my brother who lives there, get a high-paying job. I could really do ramen for a couple of years, and I can afford to like self-fund the company one way or another. It's just one of those. It doesn't matter. You just believe in what you're doing so much that you believe in the impact. You believe in that the world is going to be a better place because of it. So when it gets to that point, it's one of those. It doesn't matter how hard people beat you down, unless you actually find out, hey, they're actually right. My previous venture. So, but if you really believe in what you're doing, and as long as it's not for money, because money is really bad. I mean, it's a good motivator, but I don't think it's a strong enough motivator to take you through when crap really hits the fan.
Wow. Well, what do you think, Mr. Seth?
I agree with that 100%. I mean, it's really down about, you got to have that why, really strong. I think for me, it was always the fact of like, for the longest time, when I was in high school, people said that, or my guidance counselor said that my goal should be not to go to college, things like that. It was out of reach. I should just try to be a gas station attendant and hold down a job. And I was like, what? Wow. And so for me, like after that point, that was almost the best thing that she could have ever said to me.
Wow.
Because when she did, I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna prove you wrong. So then after that point, it's been like, can you do more? Can you give up back more? And so I would agree with Clarence. If it's money, you're gonna bomb out because the first time someone says no to your money, that just obliterated your why. But if it's like something that you're trying to prove or something that you're trying to get to, then every time someone pushes you down, it basically just like they just light it like a fire that just keeps you going.
Yeah.
And so the more that you can have that sort of vibe be something that's pushing you forward and there's like a challenge, like almost like an open challenge to yourself. That every time you get pushed down, it's literally like a challenge to yourself. It's like, all right, give up. You really want it? Or if you doubt, just hand in the towel, and then the other side of you just gets like super upset, and then you push that thing forward.
Now, I just want to say that I think you should buy a gas station or start one just to make a point. Just to make a point. Just to make a point.
Yeah, I love that.
However, we're getting to the end of the show. I'm going to ask maybe 2 more questions. I want to ask this. So for you personally, do you think, because I'm someone who believes, I have a belief I have a faith in God, and I just want to say, do you think your belief or in yourself or in a higher power something that helped you become where you are today, or do you think it's just hard work, or just the vision you had, that got you to where you are today?
For me, it's definitely my faith. It's I don't believe in luck, like you said. It's and the thing, like even the idea of like the name bottle, the idea of the company, it wasn't even. I didn't come up with it. It was like it fell in my lap, or people said, "Hey, you should do this," or "Have you thought about this?" Or it was either a sermon I heard or a Bible verse I read, and they're like, if you look at our finances, every time like the check comes in the mail, the very last second, it's one of those. I was joking to one of our investors. He's like, "Hey, where are you gonna find money?" I'm like, I don't know, but it's gonna come.
Yeah, wow,
So for him, he was like, oh, this guy is like not investable.
Yeah.
I threw all my money away, and then time after time, he's seen the check come in. He's like, and nowadays when he messages me, he's like, only God can help us now. It's the funniest thing ever.
Wow, that's awesome.
I need some of those Bible verses. I'm reading the wrong ones. The one thing that I've realized is that when you have the greatest pain, it usually sets you up for something next. And whether you're looking at that, definitely as from a faith standpoint, but also just from a business standpoint. Like my greatest strengths come from my greatest weaknesses and my greatest pains. Like the things that just obliterate my face. Usually I'll come back into that sort of thing on the next time, and you know exactly what to say on those points.
True.
And it allows you to rebound in ways that you can't even.
Wow.
And I don't know if it's the same for you, but for me, when I look back now, all those really crappy situations, like I'm so glad it happened. Like if it didn't, it would have been so bad right now. Like, with my first company failing, with some investment money not making it through, I'm like, wow, I'm actually so glad we didn't take their money.
Wow.
Like, oh gosh.
Now, before we go, I want to ask you guys one question, but I want us to, have you guys tried Ruby Jean's Juicery?
What is it?
Ruby Jean's Juicery. It's like the natural juice in Kansas City. Like, you guys have not heard of it or tasted it. Okay, cool. So it's the best. It's my first time trying it too. So I'm like, what would be the best thing to do? Try it on the show and see how you guys, react to it. Because I want to try it too. I want to see what it tastes like. So actually, I had Chris Good, the owner of the company, here on my show last year. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go out today and get me some Ruby Jean Juicery. So you guys are gonna be the first people who are gonna try with me.
All right.
So yeah. So
was that show good?
Yeah.
He thought it was bad because this isn't poison, right? He's like, this stuff is that one good, right?
Yeah, that one good.
Okay, perfect.
That one good.
Awesome.
So we're gonna just taste. But while we're tasting, I want to ask you, Mr. Clarence, what is one advice you would give to a young person, younger you out there, maybe in college, or out someone like me who's I'm in finance too. What is that one advice you give your younger self?
I'll give myself 2 because there's 2 that's really important. The first one is nothing happens overnight. I don't know how many times when I was in college I was thinking, oh man, this opportunity or this meeting with this investor is gonna blow everything on the park. If I just had money, everything will solve itself.
Yeah. Nothing
happens overnight. It's a process. So really enjoy the process. And the second one is really be unoffendable.
Yeah.
That is the one thing that it just makes life so much better.
Yeah. Well, what do you think, Mr. Seth?
I think that's amazing advice. First of all, this juice is amazing.
Yeah, it's great. I told you guys.
Insane,
you should try this flavor too.
I don't know, man. I'm gonna buy some of this. This is crazy. Like, I think you get a good
different
advice.
flavor too.
the fact that he can like don't be offended, because a lot of times you kind of that advice is key. Yeah. And the other thing is really know the context. Like ask the question of the context of where the advice comes from. Yeah. Because I think the hardest thing is that when you're younger and you're kind of getting in this, like what a serial entrepreneur tells you, like, okay, just go in early and figure out what the customer wants. I mean, like to an early entrepreneur, at least myself, that meant go online and start researching. I mean, which is not what that advice meant whatsoever. Yeah. What the advice meant was go out there, ask a bunch of people about your business, even though it doesn't exist, but pitch it like it does, and see what people actually say to it. Yeah. And so I think knowing the context when people give you that advice, like what Terrence said, is one, like, figure out the context of why they said it, and then ask the advice. And just to kind of iterate what Clarence said is like, when people are the most emotional against you, ask them what your advice is then, because you're going to get a lot more raw version of it. And because if people just tell you the niceties of it, you're going to miss it. And you're going to base a good decision on a bad call. Wow. Versus if you can get the real reason, like I remember early on we were selling this like kind of racing package stuff that one lady's like, I love it. This is not a good time. And I was like, okay, why? And she's like, it's a lot of things. And I was like, well, why is that? And I had to ask 5 times. Yeah. And at the end of the 5th, she's like, you know what? I just can't stand it. Yeah. I was like, okay, why? Wow. And she's like, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I was like, thank you. Wow. Okay, cool. So now, like, what would make it make sense? And then she's like, I don't understand these icons. I don't understand these reports. I don't understand. So I'm like, okay, cool. So we're way off on a presentation. So if you can get that honest advice, that's where it really matters. So I think Clarence nailed it.
Well, I just want to say thank you guys for coming on the show. And can you pass me that? Thank you guys for coming on the show. And man, this is good juice too. So are you on the Mr. Clarence? Where can they find you? LinkedIn, Instagram?
My name is Clarence 10, and honestly, if you Google me,
you see him. That's good. You see, we are here now. We are here. Just Google Mr. Clarence, and he'll be out there. Okay, cool. Well, how can they find Google you as well?
Seth Meinzen. I haven't Googled myself, and don't Google me yet. I guess that pretty much makes you go. I'm on LinkedIn, I guess. Okay. So you can use me there, but yeah, I'd be happy to talk to anybody.
Well, thank you guys for coming today. Thank you guys for tuning in again. This is FiredUp Case. We bring the motivation and inspiration. Now, this is Ruby Jeans. He's now at UMKC. He's partnering with UMKC. Good juice, Chris Good. Go get some for yourself. He's also in Whole Foods as well. But thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe. All right. Bye-bye for now.
I'm Seth Meinzen from Leader 6.
I'm Clarence from Bottle Learning.
And please follow FiredUp KC on Instagram, YouTube,
and Spotify.
Yeah. Follow your dreams, not your addictions.